Representative democracy is a fake show like professional wrestling. Chapter 1. The Lies of Representative Democracies. Representative democracy doesn't work. 1. Representative democracy doesn't work for these reasons. 1. Look at any elected chamber. How many politicians in that chamber have any power to do anything? In a majority government, the president or prime minister and his 4 or 5 insiders have all the power. If some underling or opposition member puts forth a bill, they can squash it easily by telling their party to kill it in the vote or before it ever gets there. In a minority government, the prime minister and his insiders have to make deals with the 3 or so leaders of the opposition parties from time to time, so in that situation, about 10 people have power in the House of Commons. 2. All the elected members are united together as the group of federal politicians. These members are out for their own interests firstly as a group of individuals rather than caring about the people. They vote on things that will give them money and help them get re-elected as opposed to trying to help the people. 2 easy examples to prove that they're out for themselves are the high salary they vote on for themselves, the length of time they have to serve before they're eligible for pension, and their annual pensions, which are way higher than the average citizen gets after 25 years of service in their profession. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation, taxpayer.ca, has said that Parliament will not release pension figures to the people. It's secret information. They said that for every $1 an MP contributes, the taxpayers contribute $4. They said that they know of one politician who has a pension of $142,000 a year. Where else do people get to pick their own salaries and pensions except at corrupt companies with greedy executives? 3. I say that there is a bubble effect of seduction and elitism in the atmosphere of life around this little area on Parliament Hill. Superimposed over this group of politicians, mingling with them are lobbyists, big business interests, the big-shot civil servants with their own agendas, diplomats and business interests from other countries, people trying to be popular in social circles, so-called celebrities from the arts community, the smaller groups like trade associations, non-profits, and NGOs who want favors from the government, and all the wide-eyed people dazzled by this bubble of elitism. Many politicians use their time in Parliament to hobnob with leaders in business and industry, do favors for them like get contracts or preferential treatment, then get rewarded with a cushy job when they retire or are defeated. That's a great deal, an excessive pension and a great patronage job. There are thousands of big companies. Every one of these companies has at least a few people working as lobbyists trying to get favors for their business and industry. Nobody really knows how much wheeling and dealing is going on in just this one area. Where big money is involved as to manipulating stock prices by changing regulations and laws, you can bet there are deals being made for the mutual benefit of the politicians and the big business interests. 4. In Canada, we have a 2-party dictatorship masquerading as a democracy. The Liberals and Conservatives have been taking turns running the country since it was formed. The NDP fluked into official opposition status recently, but it doesn't matter. The longer they stay as the official opposition, the more they will become like the party in power. In the United States, they wouldn't let Ralph Nader participate in the debate as the Libertarian candidate for president. It was just Republicans and Democrats. They're comfortable with each other as professional politicians. They fight in front of the cameras to put on a show for the people, then they're happy taking turns running the government. Do you see any real passion or a sense of urgency there with anyone, or do you see well-fed, comfortable, complacent, fat-faced people chewing their cud with their Cheshire cat smiles, laughing at you, the sucker citizen paying their way on easy street? Representative democracy doesn't work too. Barring a long history lesson here, I'll just say that the idea of representative democracy was thought up by evil masterminds to get rid of the monarchies of the world and replace them with a system of puppet leaders that elitists controlled, much like professional wrestling nowadays. It doesn't matter who wins an election. Behind the scenes, the bankers, business tycoons, and evil geniuses control all national governments by controlling the money. When people started governing themselves as societies, they initially used tyranny and bondage, but that didn't work out too well because the oppressors were always afraid that the slaves would revolt and kill them with vicious vengeance. Go back to the book of Exodus in the Bible. They already had slaves by then. If you read the book of Exodus, you'll see that the Egyptians were afraid of the Jews immigrating into their land in large numbers, so they enslaved them to keep them down. In 1066, with the Magna Carta, the Great Charter, a wise feudal lord thought up a safer way to control the serfs. Being a Canadian, I studied British history in school. They make a big deal about democracy invading the land, but it was really about two gangs, the Liberals and Tories, fighting for power. They relegated the king to sideline status, but in reality, government or power was the sum of the handful elitists there, all cavorting with each other. They made Oliver Cromwell out to be a radical, but he was a wealthy landowner. They had their civil war, but they wanted their king. They had to go back to the old way because it felt familiar to them. In reality, it was a squabble among elitist friends. There was no great war to bring equity to the masses. Same thing with the American Civil War. It wasn't to free the slaves. That's the front excuse. It was for the northern bankers and business tycoons to expand their empires in the South. Give them the illusion that they have some say in running the government. We'll put up some of our aristocratic friends to run in elections, posing as kind, helpful, intelligent people. They'll pretend to fight each other over ideas. We'll publish these debates in our newspapers as dramatic battles between heroes and villains. The people will pick their favorite guy and vote for him. They will feel emotionally tied to him, like he's their man. We'll call it representative government. Nothing will have changed, but the people will think they are now living in a free democracy where they have some say in how their tax money is spent. We'll take turns controlling the power. It will be theater brought to real life. The bottom line is the dictatorship of the monetary system, where banks create money out of nothing and lend it to governments, whereupon governments tax the people to pay this debt. All we have to do is create a new system where taxes don't exist, then we got true freedom. As long as you pay taxes, it's not democracy. Representative democracy doesn't work. 3. My job here is to show the people why representative democracies are fake democracies, where several hundred politicians plunder what they can while pretending to help people who are powerless to do anything about it except to cast a measly vote every 4 years to play musical chairs with these selfish people who are all alike in the end. They get the nice pensions they voted for themselves. Nothing changes to help the downtrodden improve their lives. Poor people don't vote much. Politicians don't care about them if there are no votes involved. Here are 7 reasons why representative democracies don't represent you. 1. The monopoly of 2 political parties. They say we live in democracies when 2 political parties take turns running a nation. We are brainwashed to pick a party and develop some kind of emotional loyalty to it, but they're really the same. The only ideology is power and money. As a guy who thinks I have good ideas on how to run a country, I cannot simply write out my ideas on a piece of paper, present them to the Federal Elections Commission and say I want to run on an equal footing with the others to lead the country. You need money, you have to get many people to sign on your behalf, etc. up front before they will let you on the ballot. It's not about Citizen Joe saying I think I have the best ideas. Let me debate the other candidates publicly. 2. The 4-year dictatorship pass. After any election, the political party that wins get a free dictator pass for the next 4 years. They do what they want, passing many bills that the people would vote down if they were voting on them one by one. Every political party gets elected on hype, then passes bad laws which most of the people forget by the next election. After 3.5 years, they turn the propaganda marketing machine on and often win again. Even if they lose, the other party gets in and does the exact same thing until the people get tired of them, then go back to the first party for a while. 3. Politicians represent themselves, not the people. Politicians earn a salary for doing virtually nothing to help people. They are either cheerleaders for the leader or are relentlessly trying to destroy him. Some politicians are there to do favors for corporate big hots and network with them in order to get rich. I say they're not only useless. They impede progress because of their constant bickering over trivial matters. Politicians represent themselves, their political party, their family and friends, their campaign contributors. Anybody who gives them money in return for favors. Then they represent the people in order to try to get re-elected. Politicians try to pretend they are doing deep, advanced, profound, technical legal government work that average people can't understand or don't want to bother with. The truth is that in any country, there are only a few big ideas a year that any government will deal with to change society in a significant way. You can easily shroud simple things in a pile of meaningless verbal diarrhea. Lawyers and academics do it all the time. They pretend they're doing deep, complicated work. We don't need hundreds of politicians to rubber stamp what their party leader orders them to do. 6. The arrogance effect. As soon as somebody gets elected to be a federal politician, they are treated as a very important person by some people. They go to the central chamber, which is full of egotistical politicians. The attitude of superiority and entitlement is the status quo. They all get indoctrinated to it. They get the expense account, the cell phone, and the briefcase and think they're hot stuff even though it's all a big show. None of them do anything great to earn their pay except for the leader and his top few insiders. The rest are all there to put on a fake show pretending to be doing something deep, profound, and useful. 7. The Machiavellian game of politics. I was watching the JFK documentary on PBS. What a game! All that ass-licking and strategy he had to do just to get elected. It's a cult of celebrity versus a cult of ideas. Kennedy's staff are telling him how to act, how to attack the other guy. They're wasting all that energy attacking each other personally. Where are the ideas to help people in the midst of politicians fighting each other? We, the people, watch this theater of egomaniacs fighting each other. The problem is that I don't care who is the wittiest or the best looking. I care about helping people so we live in a better society. That's it for me. All those political games take energy away from helping people. Representative democracy doesn't work for. Why can't we be a bunch of noble human beings? Everybody present your 20 best ideas. That's the entire campaign. Who's got the best ideas for the future vision of the nation? Let's get rid of this crap we see every election where they kill each other with negative half-truths, innuendo, and lies. By the end of the election, they all sold their souls 100 times. The guy or gal who wins can't be feeling very good about themselves because they just beat the crap out of somebody who is probably a harmless person, but they had to lie about them in order to win. I watched a group of young political party members from the big two parties talk amongst themselves. After they got over the initial crap about defending their party's ideology, they started to get real. After an hour of talking, the truth started to come out in wisps. They all wanted the prize, to get elected or get a cushy appointment to a good government job. They're all out for themselves. If they really wanted to help the world, they would be doing something like those people at NHeroes do, not belonging to one of the big political parties, pretending to have noble ideas. Politics is the big money trough for phony activists. A real activist fights for rights. The fake ones join the big political parties looking for the cushy life. Representative democracy doesn't work. 5. Most of us have heard jokes about how many stupid Polacks, Noofs, Wops, or Spics do you need to change a light bulb? The answer is 500. 1 to hold the light bulb, 499 to turn the house. How many people do you need to run a country? Do you need hundreds of politicians when on average, there are less than 20 big ideas a year in any nation? The boards of directors of the biggest companies in the world rarely have more than 10 members. The reason is that too many talking heads spoil the broth. Having hundreds of politicians to supposedly run a country is basically a make-work program for elitists. We never need more than 10 people to deliberate on any issue, no matter how important it is. Do you work hard for your money? Do several hundred politicians deserve easy money off the sweat from your brow? Take any country with a representative democracy, calculate the cost to run the Senate, Parliament/Congress and the President's office for a year to come up with the total cost. It's over $1 billion in some countries. Right beside that, make a list of all the ideas the politicians created, debated, and passed into law for that year that are good ideas that will help improve the lives of a lot of people. This does not include the minor administrative laws, the pork barrel laws which are money grabs by politicians for useless to questionable things in order to buy votes or help a campaign contributor, and the laws that civil servants create wanting more money from the politicians. What do the politicians do to actually help the common people in a real way that's new and unique, as opposed to creating a law for their buddies in some industry? I want to see exactly what the political chambers contribute as useful, creative, original ideas to help the people of any nation live better lives in a given year in simple form on one page, one idea after the other. In the business world, success is measured by tangible results. In politics, there is no measure of accountability at all. Representative democracy doesn't work. 6. I have not seen the spirit of limitless possibility in society since I was a kid in the 1960s. Jobs were easy because we manufactured most of the goods we used, not like now where we buy almost everything from foreign nations. What caused that? Was it free trade pushed by politicians backed by big corporations looking to cut costs by moving their operations to countries with cheap labor and no labor laws? Mean-spirited partisan politics is an evil entity. It can be eliminated from government. Your politicians anywhere in the world will never, ever realize that they are a bunch of pompous parasites, so they will never, ever do the right thing and abolish themselves. We, the people, can get together and abolish them with a new system where we run the country by creating ideas and voting on them online. They're not special. They don't have any advanced knowledge like they pretend to. We don't need hundreds of freeloaders. Are we, the people, brave enough to say we have had enough of these serial temporary dictatorships masquerading as representative democracies? Franklin D. Roosevelt said, "Nothing in politics ever happens by accident. If it happens, you can bet it was planned that way." Benjamin Disraeli, the Victorian-era Prime Minister of Britain, wrote, "The world is governed by people far different from those imagined by the public." I was reading an article on the internet at activistpost.com written by Dr. Peter Beadle, who died in the 1980s, but he put together an 80-hour audio series before that about who controlled the world. These are two of his quotes. "Major events in politics, economics, and international relations are the products of deliberate moves by largely unseen power factions in the world. All of these factions seek to increase their influence over us, the general population of the world. Each one also wishes to increase its own power at the expense of the other. Power is always most secure when it is not recognized, so every effort is made to keep information about it from becoming public. There is something going on that we don't know about. Representative democracy doesn't work. 7. I've seen peaceful men become warmongers. There is something insidious about our governments when our elected leaders seem to abandon reason and compassion to do unjust, unkind, oppressive evil things. I think I know one of the ways this happens. It's as simple as peer pressure or bullying. Imagine the president or prime minister, the president's men, some military generals and maybe a couple of industrialists in a room. The president might be a good guy, but most of the other people in the room are imperialists and capitalists. They want to bomb the rest of the world, make money selling stuff and exploit whatever oil they can get anywhere. That's what they do as their money-making business. The president is the front man. He takes the crap for bad decisions. They don't. He might be too naive to know that. He's in this room with 10 people telling him to do this even though his heart tells him he doesn't want to. He wants peace. They want to control as much of the world as they can. They appeal to his vanity. They say we have to show we're tough and strong. He wants approval. He might not be strong enough to stand on his own. The old guard have a silent power to destroy the president's career if he doesn't go along with their agenda. They can abandon him and make him look like an incompetent dud with no friends. The easiest way out is to go along with them. This is why I think good men do bad things when they suddenly get high office. They're intimidated into it by the other big hots in the room ganging up on them. They seduce him, play him, brainwash him, and convince him that they know how world affairs work. They also blackmail and make deals kind of like do this or else we'll do that to screw you, or you do this, we'll do this for you in return. They say they know what's best. Very few people are strong enough to fire them all and change the system drastically, because they will scare him by saying you will make a mess of it if you try to do it alone with your own ideas. Leave it to us. We'll make you look good. Established people never want change. They say JFK tried to avoid a war with Cuba, which his generals wanted. He tried to end the Cold War. This would have meant a big downsizing of the military-industrial complex. Some people think he got killed because he wanted peace. A lot of people were making a lot of money because of the Cold War industry. Does any politician have the guts to create bills about drastically cutting the military budget, getting rid of the national security agencies, changing the banking system, etc.? Representative democracy doesn't work. 8. I feel insulted when I hear anybody refer to my native Canada as a democracy. It's a joke democracy. We get a temporary dictator with 39% of the popular vote. Even though activist people want freedom and democracy, there are always two forces that are constantly conspiring against any reform-minded people. 1. A lot of people are pacified, timid and afraid of change. They would rather stick with the familiar corrupt system than to move on to the new, unproven, untested system even though it's better. 2. The entrenched, established old guard are willing to fight hard to keep a hold of their power, even to the point of violence, brutality, false arrest, assassination, oppressive laws, etc. It's a fight to the end. Take nothing for granted. The constitutions and charters of all nations were honorable documents crafted by noble men and women seeking freedom and justice for all, but over time, evil people find ways to use the system to serve their own ends. We can't trust the Supreme Court or any government institution to deliberate for a possible reform in the structure of government and come to binding conclusions, because they're all part of the system. They want to save their own jobs above all else. They care about themselves way before they care about doing the right thing for the good of the people. As long as they're living the good life in the capital city, government employees will not risk anything to help the people in the rest of the country. We need a new structure of government that uses internet technology to give us all an equal voice in creating and voting on all big ideas. Representative democracy doesn't work. 9. Governments are about people with power trying to keep it for themselves, beating up on anyone who challenges them. 1. Most elected governments give the illusion of democracy. The real rule is that those in power try to keep it by helping out people who give them money and other favors, both for their campaigns while they're in office and after they either retire or get kicked out of politics. 2. It's always about the people in power looking out for their own self-interest as opposed to helping the people. Occasionally a philosopher king gets in who doesn't care about money or power, just about doing the right thing, but they're rare. In a recent election I followed, the philosopher king guy got trounced because the other guy had lots of campaign contributions which he used to run dirty attack ads on the guy who was morally better. The winner now owes the guys who contributed to his campaign favors. Where does that leave you, the average citizen, at the end of the line, which they'll never get to because some friend always needs a favor first? 3. The law is not really equal fairness and justice for all. There is one law for the rich and connected, another law for average citizens without friends in high places. 4. The rich and powerful do what they want to exploit, use and hurt others if need be. 5. Representative democracy is a winner-take-all game, which makes it a temporary dictatorship, not a true democracy. 6. There is an incredible amount of routine waste in the government by politicians and employees, many of whom feel elitist and entitled with their cushy government jobs. 7. All parliaments are rife with inherent fraud by virtue of lobbyists and special interest groups having more power to influence politicians than the people do. 8. The mainstream media sometimes does a good job reporting the truth, but quite often it's a big show created to conform to a comfortable, materialistic ideology these journalists have about the world, which often whitewashes the truth and ignores the ugliness and cruelty of the human race because they don't want people to see how horrible we really are as a species and how ugly life really is for a lot of people. If we were to see the pure truth every day, it would be bad for selling products, which is what the mainstream media does, make money by selling advertising space. They want people to feel comfortable and spend money to keep the capitalist machine flowing, even if there is a big suffering underclass out there. It's all show geared to sell product and put forth the idea that excessive materialism is the key to happiness, while ignoring the truth that we have many poor, homeless, hungry, ignorant, uneducated, sick, old, unemployed, mentally challenged, physically challenged, terminally ill, angry, depressed, addicted, messed up, sad, broken people living among us in our cities. Politicians often sell their votes to their buddy lobbyists and special interest groups. Your government's job is to help you live a better life. Representative democracy doesn't work. 10. The term representative democracy is an oxymoron because 1. As soon as you separate people from the pack and tell them you will be our leaders, they start thinking like elitists with entitlements. This is Machiavellian human nature 101 or Lord of the Flies 101. 2. The concept of elections are skewed against good people who want to get in for the right reasons. Philosopher kings are nice guys and girls. They rarely win elections because they refuse to use dirty tactics or take money from people who expect favors later. Corporate interests fund people who return favors. With all this corporate money, corrupt people win elections by saturating the media with ads, some of them dirty attack ads. Then they do not help the people. They help themselves and their big business friends who helped them win the election. 3. In my country Canada, our so-called representatives voted themselves a $158,600 starting salary with a pension after 6 years for a part-time job with no accountability standards. Nobody checks to see if they're in their offices helping the people during the 4-month summer break. They get 2 months off at Christmas. Can some journalist calculate how many hours they spend in Parliament a year, then do some undercover work to see how they spend all that other time where they always claim to be busy helping the people? Being elected as a politician is like winning the lottery, considering they're set with a lifetime pension after 6 years. 4. There are hundreds of lobbyists and special interest groups surrounding the parliamentary bubble in every country, paying good hard cash to the politicians to get laws that favor them passed. It's illegal, but that's the way politics works. Read the history books. Nothing has changed since we started representative democracies several hundred years ago. 5. Politicians have stock investments that can go way up when certain laws pass. It's easy to set up a stock account through a friend which can't easily be traced back to you, or set it up in another country. If you know that a bill is going to be passed that is going to promote some big project, you can easily buy stocks in that industry before this knowledge goes public. This is under the media radar. I've never seen a journalist explore it. 6. The atmosphere around Parliament is jovial and privileged. Most of those social functions and parties are on the taxpayer's dime. Now that they're on the inside, they're elitists regardless of party affiliation. The bickering and arguing is part acting for the cameras like professional wrestlers do, but it's also petty bickering that never ends, which wastes time that could be used to better serve the people. They spend lots of time opposing each other as political parties, with the parties not part of the majority almost always taking the opposite view of the majority party, even if the bill is a good idea. The Dictator's Handbook: Why Politicians and Dictators Are the Same. According to the Dictator's Handbook, all democratically elected politicians and dictators want the same thing: to hold on to power, to keep it for as long as possible with as little effort as possible. The only difference is that the people can get tired of the democratically elected guy and throw him out, but this makes democracy more desperate in the sense that the head elected dude is constantly thinking about what he must do to stay in power rather than thinking about doing the right thing to help people. In a community called Bell in Los Angeles County, the politicians set up a system where, with a population of 36,000, only 300 votes mattered. Because the rest cancelled each other out, they were the swing vote. So they paid these people off in exchange for keeping themselves in power while charging the property taxes of the other residents a much higher rate than the norm. The city manager was earning $736,000 a year, which is much higher than the President of the United States makes at $400,000. To be in a position of power you must be willing to step over whoever you can to get there, making most people with power innately corrupt and open to abusing it. Power makes a person think that the rules do not apply to him or her.